Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Chatting with the Comic Community. I'm your host, Sean, Stay Puft 1983. I am joined by my fellow comic community member, Big Will Comics.
I have arrived.
And I have a special guest today, Sebastian A. Jones, the founder of Stranger Comics. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. You know, it's sunny out here in Los Angeles, although I'm inside, the windows are open and the light is coming in. I feel good. I appreciate being here.
When I asked you about, coming on the show, I specifically timed it for February, Black History Month.
Right.
I felt like it was perfect to get you on and to talk about the Stranger Comics brand and the universe and the characters and all that. But before I get to that, I want to know, because every guest come on the show, I got to ask them their comic book origin, their history with comic books, what got them into comic books, what made them fall in love with the hobby and becoming a collector, and that led to actually the creation of Stranger Comics. So the comic book origin story, man.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So the first thing that just pops into my head is the Incredible Hulk. Because I was, I'm still a skinny dude. I've always been very, very skinny and kind of picked on as a kid. But I had this horrible, leave me alone, please. But then I had a horrible temper. So if don't push me, or if I get angry, all those kind of things. And so I think I related to the wanting to be left alone and the Bruce Banner of it all, and then this explosiveness that that the Hulk had, and the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, all these kind of like these two sides to his character. He was definitely my favorite. He's my all-time favorite hero. I love the tragedy too of the love affair with Betty Ross and all these wonderful things that Frankenstein's monster, obviously all these wonderful things that those great writers back in the days were able to kind of convey, with the nuance of storytelling, and also just wanting to be able to stand up to bullies. That was a big part of my childhood. And my father was a very tough guy, and I never liked to fight, but he was always very much like, if someone picks on you, punch him in the face, or if someone pushes you, punch him. His answer, that was pretty much his answer for everything. Even if I was like, but I'm scared, and I realized I was more afraid of him thinking I was a coward than the actual act, which kind of made me deal with fear as well. Fear of my own rage, or fear of the result thereof, or whatever the case may be. So I was still cowardly in some respects, I think, because I was afraid of how he would view me. So and I remember feeling like this conflict with Banner and the concepts of his childhood as well. So there were a lot of layers, I think, to that character. And then I met Lou Ferrigno when I was 4 on set of The Incredible Hulk, all painted in green, and that was like amazing. And he gave me a signed photograph of him, and I took it back to England, and it still had the green thumbprint. And it never dawned on me that was makeup. It was literally like, oh shit, I've got the Hulk thumbprint on this picture, and it's on my wall. So it all blended into just absurd Hulkmania. Hulkamania? No, Hulkmania. So anyway, yeah, that's. And then I read, before I go down the rabbit hole of rambling, I read This Man, This Monster, the classic, and that's still to this day my all-time favorite comic read. It was just the beauty of what a hero truly is. And so those are kind of early foundational memories. And then of course the X-Men, I was a giant Storm and Wolverine fanatic, and Black Panther. It kind of, but yeah, I'll stop there.
Oh, man, go ahead, man. Because we all have these characters that once we start reading the comics, we fall in love with. Like, one of the characters I grew up reading a lot was Spider-Man. He was one of my favorites. I loved the
Yeah.
Spider-Man. And then, of course, X-Men came. When the X-Men cartoon came, that's when I started going headfirst into the X-Men comics and stuff.
Right.
So, comics just have all these various characters. Like I'm also a Superman fan. I love the Christopher Reeve movie. He was my Superman.
He's the best.
Yeah, and these characters that you fall in love with, and it just brings you closer to the medium of comics. And then you like you said, you fall into that rabbit hole, and you become, the comic book fanatic that we are.
Yeah, absolutely.
You won me over with Wolverine.
Oh yeah. Wolverine, man. I mean, it was that same kind of thing, I think, because I discovered the Hulk to start with, and then when I got, I'm 47 now, so I got very, very entrenched in the X-Men, and it was I think it was this idea of he's 5'3", is dealing with this inner rage. I loved the mystique about him. I think they were very clever early on, the writers, at building a mystique. They forced this desire to want to know more about who he is and where he comes from and who his family is, who is his father, his love affairs in Japan, all these wonderful, brilliant opportunities for intrigue. And I also, being a fan of like Toshiro Mifune, Yojimbo, and spaghetti westerns, I felt like those are huge cinematic influences and inspirations for me. That Wolverine kind of embodied this man with no name, doesn't say a lot of shit, but when he speaks, it's very, there's a very direct kind of visceral honesty. And I think I loved that Clint Eastwoody, Richard Roundtree, Toshiro Mifune, that badass dude I could never be, but would love to be, So I think that character really, really spoke to me. And again, that whole dealing with the monster inside you,
Yeah.
So would you have assumed he was from Canada without being told, though? He never speaks like a Canadian.
No, I would say no, and also from being that's a very good question, and being from England too, I had no fucking clue, mate. To be honest, I was like, he uses the word bub. Okay, I mean, until I got a bit older, and started piecing it a little bit together. I would say no.
It's funny that they kind of cut back on how he talks later on in in the 2000s and stuff. Like the stuff that he was saying in the 80s and 90s, you didn't see much of it in the 2000s because they changed a little bit of his dialogue.
But do you remember, because I watched this recently, and Big Will, if you're a Wolverine fanatic, then do you remember the Amazing Spider-Man? The Spider-Man is an Amazing Friends episode when they had the X-Men on as guest stars. He sounded like he had a very bad British accent. Apologies to whoever did the acting, the voice acting for him. But I was like, is this meant to be British? Is it? I think so. Or Australian? Or is it is it a bad Australian accent? It's a blend, but isn't he from Canada?
Yeah.
What's up, California blend? So yeah, it's just very, very. It was a very. Did you guys see that episode?
No, I haven't seen that episode. I haven't seen all the episodes yet.
Okay.
So I haven't seen that one.
It's on. I believe it's on YouTube. Google Spider-Man is Amazing Friends with the X-Men, and it's Juggernaut is coming to throw down on the X-Men.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
I remember
also
that.
on Disney Plus. The whole show.
It's on Disney Plus.
Oh, okay. I got to check that out. Okay, that's fanatic.
And I do remember when they did Kitty Pride of the X-Men, the anime, when he had Australian accent, something like that.
Then it must be the same thing then, because I was like, is that Australian? And it's funny because being in America for such a long time, I still get asked, "Are you from Australia?" I'm like, "No, do I sound Australian? Do I sound Australian? I don't,
So with the comic book origins,
yeah,
and you know, becoming a comic book fan, being a huge Hulk fan and stuff, what led to the process of you wanting to become a part of comic books by writing and creating your own characters?
Well, I think I'd always kind of been in love with the idea of, creating a Marvel universe of fantasy, and being a comic fiend, and then being just a huge fan of the fantasy genre. I played a lot of Warhammer, D&D, live action role playing. I was a huge LARPer, like hardcore in that and all that kind of stuff, and also wanting to create. I thoroughly enjoy creating worlds. I was usually the dungeon master or games master, and then wanting to kind of create worlds that also kind of reflected more of a more global kind of perspective. But I've been doing that, been creating these worlds since I was 12, 13, painting miniatures since I was 8, So I think it was just this natural kind of, these two roads were leading towards, loving the comic medium, being a huge, Marvel head, and being a huge fantasy fanatic. And it wasn't, I had a record label for about 10, 15 years or so. And it wasn't until I wound that down, and during that time continued to create worlds, I had created these stories around these characters I'd built. And I didn't want to run a company again, because running a record label is its own unique animal. And I was kind of exhausted. And I just thought, okay, let me find a good publisher that can publish these stories. And ultimately, because of how pro-authentic representation, pro-Black, and all these various things that encapsulated what I was trying to put out, I was very concerned that some of the publishers I'd meet with, they just wanted to fuck with me because it was like, oh, I can use this as a headline in Black History Month, and this is just a quick, potential headline grab, and it's kind of surface and cosmetic. And so after meeting a few people, I was like, oh shit, in order for me to protect the integrity and the vulnerability of the characters, especially this one character, Niobe, I've got to protect her and form a company, start a company again. And during the running of the record label, I'd written stuff and, writing liner notes and writing stories. And I just thought, well, and I'd written a script. I thought, fuck it, I got to give it a shot, and that because Niobe and the world had been with me. The world of Asunder had been with me. I was just playing in this make-believe world I was creating since I was a boy. And then how to transition that into comics. And Niobe's been with me for that long,
Wow. So ever since you were 13, this was something that you've been planning, plotting, creating. And it's funny because, when you're a kid, you have so many vivid stories within your own mind,
True.
And I was talking with Rangian yesterday. We was talking about the movie Last Action Hero.
Oh yeah.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger, and how the critics didn't understand that movie, but we did, because that was our fantasy,
Right.
Go into these worlds and meet our heroes in these movies, and stuff. So when you create a lot of things in your mind, sometimes it's like you want to put it on paper. Yeah. And I've done that many times as a kid. Like, I never really went forward with it, but I've always put something on paper, like my own creative world where, there's crossover with cartoon characters that I love, or, characters from comics and stuff like that. I just put it on paper and just imagine all this stuff. And the imagination is strong.
100%. I mean, it really was, your imagination is your playground. And I think in my experiences when I was very, very young, being a young kind of mixed kid growing up in where I was growing up, and we talked about the Hulk and all these various things and fights and so on. the imagination is your escapism, is your opportunity to escape whatever you need to escape. I think that's why comics give such a wonderful opportunity to have us. And why Peter Parker is so important for that, because you can relate. You can relate to, I don't get the girl, or I'm a bit of a nerd, or I'm a bit of the, and I think those are very, very important realities that blend into fantasy. Now, when I was creating these worlds and creating these characters, for me, like they would shoulder the burden of my ambitions and vulnerabilities. So Niobe, I put a lot on her, essentially. I think I romanticized about a hero that could take on all of my hopes and my fears and my ambitions and my wrath and my frustration, and my, being mixed as well. All these various things, like to reflect the duality of spirit and these light and dark elements that we all share. And then my hope for her was she could then make the fantasy world I was creating a better place, right? So it was I sound very obnoxious saying all this shit, but it's just how I think it was. And then as I grew, she kind of grew with me, and the world got bigger. And then we see what's happening. We also, then you're informed and inspired and moved and challenged by your own day-to-day life and circumstances, and also the politics of the realities of what's going on. So they inform the worlds you're creating, and your knowledge expands and so on. And also, the older you get, the more in touch you get within your own spirit and the spirit of ancestors and your family and other people and so on. And if you can bring that into the world you're creating, then I think it makes a much more vivid and nuanced experience for a reader to go, oh, okay, cool. I can pick up this shit and go, bet, this chick's an elf and she's got a fucking cool sword. And if that's all you get out of it, that's fine too, right? Like, oh, I like elves. I like, oh, she's black. I support black comics. Cool. I don't give a fuck what it is. Okay, fine. Oh, she's on this story. She's hunting down sex traffickers and slave traders to reflect our own girls that get abducted on the streets of New York to not just the other parts of the world. Oh, we can touch on different layers, and it's up to the reader to find those elements, and rather than blasting them over their head. Plant seeds, and the reader can do the watering, and that's how I think the greatest storytellers did back in the days. They're not going to give you everything. They allow you to sit back and take your time, right? And in try and find the hidden Easter eggs and peel back the layers of the onion.
Awesome. Well, you have the question?
Well, not really. I was just going to mention that I find it interesting that you had mentioned Warhammer and D&D.
Oh yeah.
It's right now I'm in a D&D game, and once we're finished with it, they're going to let me DM for a little while. And,
okay.
And I'm using it because, as far as the whole world, I've got the framework of the world set up, and I'm good to go there. But no one wants to read a story about a world. You need characters in your story. And that's hard for me to write. And I want to write a comic, and I have for a while. So I'm going to use the game with the characters that my friends play to help me to write the story within the world that I created. And I just found it interesting that you mentioned that.
Yeah, bro, honestly, that's a beautiful thing. Like when you play D&D, let me ask you, do you write, you go, okay, I've got this character. Like when we role play, we're like fucking psycho for like okay, I'm going to make sure my backstory is this. They're onto,
I've got one of these pads full of the character.
See, that's what it is, bro. It's like, you know the ambition of your character, your hope, that the character's hopes and dreams and fears and political intrigues and sister was abducted and I got to do this, and that's my side quest. The DM has more and more information to like play with the characters and so on. And the more you color that character, the more believable they are, and then it becomes contagious too with the other people that want to do, like, oh shit, this motherfucker is really in depth with their character, I gotta do the same. And then the DM has to come correct. So, I'll just show you something where, like, you might want to check out. We have a Niobe Pathfinder book right here. And we have actual stats and feats and all sorts of fun stuff. We did this officially with Paizo.
Yeah. And for those watching that may not know, Pathfinder, the Warhammer, and Dungeons and Dragons are tabletop role-playing games.
Mm-hmm.
And one other thing, because it's right here, I'll show you. We also have the Niobe miniature.
Oh, that's cool.
So
and it's one that can be painted too.
You can paint this bad boy. This is made by Mythic, one of the best miniature makers in the business. Whoop. So you can get all this on the site in addition to our comics. And just to show you another incredibly nerdy cool thing, for those folks who want to cosplay as Niobe or live action role play, if you're a super nerd, we have made by the best live action role playing weapons makers in the world, Calamasil. They make the Niobe sword. And these runes, Will, as you're a D&D head, are translatable. These actually appear in the graphic novel The Untamed, Niobe Shear's Death, magic runes, spirit runes, languages, wow. all that good stuff. So if you're a D&D head as well as a comic fiend, then the World of Asunder might be for you.
I have to ask, how insane are you? Is that translation just simple substitution or like an actual language?
It's meant to be an actual language. I'm not like Tolkien gifted. I really am not. I know that bloke, he created languages and then created races for the languages. Yeah, painting miniatures is great. It calms the spirit, man.
Well, you were selling me on the story, because I have to admit now that I'm on most of these with Sean, but he's the one that found Niobe and started reading it and is enjoying the company. I had no idea you existed. I haven't read a single thing. All I know is that the covers of Niobe that Sean has shown are fire. That's all I know.
Thank you.
I'm interested.
Well, do you guys? Sean, would you be cool? Can I give you guys the pitch?
Sure. Because
okay.
I was gonna ask you about the origins of Stranger Comics.
Oh, perfect.
So pitch away.
So I'm gonna give you the pitch of the story, and then I'll tell you the origins of Stranger. Because the origins of Stranger are the origins of Niobe, and Niobe is first introduced in this book. I'll show you the graphic novel of it. This was the old school one, The Untamed. What we're gonna do is we're gonna pull that off. There's The Untamed, The Sinner's Prayer. And this is a story, guys, of a man who's stuck in purgatory. And after 10 years, the devil comes along and he says, I'll give you 7 days to reap the 7 souls that murdered you and your family. The guy says, well, sign me up. And he takes a drifter's return out of purgatory to this fantasy world I spent 30 years creating. And my question would be, if I was at a convention, you see that guy there? What's holding him up? The hand of the devil. So this guy takes a drifter's return out of purgatory to a one-horse town in a huge world. As his memory comes back in broken shards, he realizes he was a bad man and maybe he deserved to die, but now he's on a path to save his family. On his path of vengeance to save their soul, there's the sword.
Yes.
He meets a little elven girl, and her name is Niobe. And she reminds him of how old his murdered daughter would have been, given this man a second chance to be a good man or a father. But he only has 7 days. The kicker is, what if she's one of the 7 souls he has to collect? And the devil set the whole thing up just to find her. Would you damn your family to save the world? Because if Niobe can stay alive in the Untamed, a sinner's prayer, 7 days, 7 souls, 7 issues, because I'm English, I'm slightly obnoxious, I try and be poetic. If Niobe can stay alive in the Untamed, she will grow up to become my world's Luke Skywalker, the face of our whole franchise. So that is the Untamed, where you first meet Niobe Ayutami. In the back of these books, we have all sorts of incredible art. That's Niobe when she's older. Issessa, one of her nemesis, a Vorcassian vampire. The art is painted by, so Daryl May does all our layouts. Peter Bergting, who does Harry Potter covers, Lord of the Rings covers. He spent nearly 10 years painting this book. I have a Korean movie kind of like that. I have no idea. And this story really is a tale of one man's desire to be a better father, to be a better man. And what if he has that second chance to reflect kind of like a whole, we all kind of wish we could go back and go, I wish I could have been a better father. This guy has a chance to be a better man, but he only has 7 days. And then to be a better man, would he give it all up to save the world? Like, this story is, would you damn the world to save your family, or would you damn your family to save the world? And ultimately, he has to make the right decision. So that's the Untamed. And I have multiple Untamed books. And then Niobe got her own story. Now, what I'll do is I'll show you. I'll put it down somewhere. But this is the hardcover. Oh, here it is. This is Niobe Shear's life. Niobe Shear's life. That's the trade paperback of it.
Yeah, I have that one.
You have this one. Okay, so this I wrote with Amanda Stenberg, and Ashley A. Woods did the art. Now, the cover art, guys, if you guys play video games, if you guys know The Last of Us, the lead designer did a lot of artwork and cover art of all this stuff. That's Hyung. But this is the first nationally distributed comic in history with a Black female author, artist, and hero in the history of entertainment. So Niobe is a piece of history. And I'll show you from the hardcover, guys. Niobe Shear's life is a Beauty and the Beast love story threaded with murder and mystery that leads to war.
I love that page.
Thank you. Yeah, it's there's a story behind that. That Hyung did this one too. But it's also Viola Davis rocked the forward in this one, which is pretty amazing. And she says, we all have a Niobe inside ourselves. It's time to let her roar. But so it's also about a young girl, a young half-elven girl returning to her ancestors to try and find her faith. So as we also struggle as people to try and connect with where we belong, just the idea of where do we fit in, but where do we belong as well? That's Niobe Shear's life. It's a very naive tale of hope and first love and being betrayed and all those wonderful kind of things that we see. Like there's this line right here, the beast in the story says, this world will not love us, Niobe. And she says, no, but will that stop us from loving the world? So it's Niobe's very young and naive in this. And then Niobe Shear's life goes to Niobe Shear's death. And Niobe Shear's death, like I was saying, is when she gets a bit older. Yeah. And it's like, and she becomes basically armors up and realizes, well, I can't just pray this away. This is where she becomes a badass bounty hunter hunting down sex traffickers and slave traders. Like, oh fuck, I gotta armor up. Like, okay, so we remember Black Panther has the wonderful Wakanda symbol. We, funnily enough, a year before Black Panther came out, we had this image by Jay Lee. Let me see, there we go. Right? So basically, Niobe here, we see her like this. This hair symbol is she's opening herself to receive the gift of light from the goddess of healing. Her hands are open. They're also in the shape of angel wings, which is marked on her back. And here she says, I'm not gonna listen to you, Mom, anymore. I've got to armor up and get down. And then we'll have Niobe Shear's spirit to combine her faith and fighting as she grows, as we do. And then I'll finish with Niobe Shear's God, where she binds nations against the devil, her father, the Untamed. So it all comes around. We have different tales in different regions. Like we have this beautiful book, Dusu.
Yeah, I had just ordered the trade.
Oh, you have?
Because I read the first issue of it, and I was like, I gotta get the trade.
Oh shit! Okay, that's awesome. Because Dusu is, we have beautiful like there we are.
Oh,
all sorts of incredible art. We have actually a limited edition of that cover by Raheem Milton. We have 50 copies. Actually, we have like 5 left on the store on the reserve. But Dusu is a story of a man with the spirit of the jaguar deep within his soul. When the ancient spirit of the wolf comes hunting him, he has to risk unleashing his own inner beast and risk destroying the tribe he loves to save them. And guys, this is Niobe's tribe. She just doesn't know it yet.
Yeah.
So everything's kind of interconnected, world built. Like Dura is the ancient of the butterfly, and this is her first. There's a lot of first appearances in this.
You mentioned Navi's brother.
Navi's brother, Wasso. Yeah, this dude right here with the feather.
Yeah.
And you see the caterpillar right there? That caterpillar, that we drop little hints because that caterpillar's grown into butterflies. Dura is in this. We're going to have a Dura Niobe book coming out in April, and she is the ancient of the butterfly. So you see the butterfly wings behind her. It's all nerdy stuff.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's looking like you've got this world, and you're telling different stories in the world, and Niobe is one story that has a beginning, a middle, and it will end, but you'll continue with other stories in this same world. Am I right?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, Niobe's not going to be a character that 5 different writers take over, and 20 years from now, she's still having her own series, right? She
still have her own series. The way obviously there's 2 things at play. One, I don't have the pockets of like a big studio, and 2, I also want to always maintain as much quality as possible to remain boutique and remain like super focused on the quality of the storytelling and who she is. But when I kick the bucket, my hope is people will still be able to write stories about her. Like the one that is coming out in April is when she's younger. The story is very much like, imagine if Yoda was with Luke, but Luke was about 10 and they're on the run, and Yoda has all this information to download to Luke. Like, I got to tell you all this shit on how to be a good Jedi while we're on the run. And so it creates this pressure cooker situation. And Dura's not well. And then does Dura trust Niobe with the information, knowing that she's also could go to the dark side? So it's, but in the Shia series, to your note, Will, is the Shia series will have a 4-arc series. Now, what I do have, again, to show you, like, this is in the Scandinavian part of my world, Erathun. And I'll take this off too, so you can just get a glimpse into, there's Niobe when she's older. So Niobe does appear, and it's just essentially finding, I think, once we've got some of these storylines down, kind of like a main age to fuck with, right? So Erathun is a story of a dwarf with a cursed axe and 2 souls to collect, and he can be rid of this axe for good, one of which is his brother the king, who casts him out upon return of pain of death. Now, this one is very different. This is very much, Will, like you're a D&D head or a Warhammer head. This is set in the Scandinavian part of the world, so but with flashbacks to what happens in Shia's life. So, but this is, if you like Warhammer and D&D, this is a orcs v dwarves battle, right? And we have all sorts of thank you. No, I appreciate it. And guys, if you are interested, just to let you know, all month we have a discount code BHM for Black Heroes Matter and Black History Month. 20% off everything from the site. We have bundle discount deals on our trade paperbacks and these hardcovers.
And the link is in the description, everybody.
Oh, awesome. So, yeah, it's really good stuff. And this is done by Sheldon Mitchell, his Jamaican brother who lives in Baltimore. He's an absolutely incredible. He worked on Cable, The Darkness for Top Cow, and he did The Sheer's Death, and he's also done Erathun for us. And he's also doing some gorgeous art on our new comic. And so, yeah, so everything's intertwined. So, yes, Naibi Sheer's Death, Sheer's Life. It's funny, I did one of those things on Twitter that people say, like, how it started and how it's going, you know. But, yeah, so we've got a number of titles all intertwined. But Niobe, I do want her to continue to live and breathe. But having the stories be always a reflection on something internal that's going on. Just to kind of to bore you guys a little bit. Well, I'll show you just one thing in Naibi Sheer's Death, the new hardcover we have, because I can read it a little easier from this. I'm going a bit blind, I think.
You know, Seth, man. I mean, I have the single issues and I have some trades, but I'm like, man, them hardcovers look beautiful, man.
Brother, the hardcovers are ridiculous. Like straight up, they are. Okay, so when I started Stranger Comics, what I wanted to do is I modeled it after 3 companies. One was Taschen, one was Blue Note Records, because you get something from Stranger Comics. I want someone to feel like they're getting an, I know it sounds fucking so obnoxious, but an experience, and to feel a sense of dignity. Like, oh, this feels good. I will fucking rock this on my coffee table. I'm into comics, I'm into culture, I'm into fantasy, and this sits on my coffee table with pride.
Are any of those companies American? Because I have never heard of them.
Okay, so Taschen is very famous for doing very, very beautiful hardcovers of whether it's photography or cooking or traveling or whatever. Taschen is amazing. Not Hardcore Omnibus. Yeah, you're 100% right. Blue Note Records is a record label that is American. It was one of the most prolific jazz record labels in the 60s and 50s. And they were very, very famous for their album cover photography. They were iconic photography. And then the other one was HBO because of the quality of storytelling and the quality of programming. So whether we're doing fantasy or kids books or a comic with dick and fart jokes, we want it to just be uncompromising. This is who we are, and this is what how we rock. So within this night, yeah, you do. Okay, yeah, same. So yeah, I used to release a lot of jazz records back in the days, John Coltrane and so on. And like everything has weight and meaning. Like this here is meant to give a nod and an homage to Huey Newton, right? So yes. we plant seeds of culture within our books, but also in the storytelling. I've got this passage I read the other day, and I'll see if I can find it. Right, so Niobe is dealing with struggling with the idea of destiny, of who she should be. And she basically says that people are trying to reach out to her. Like she's hearing the cries and the wails of people needing her help. And she says, my mother doesn't speak to me anymore. She doesn't hear the goddess of light anymore because Niobe starts, killing fools, and like she can't bear to see atrocities. So she says, I felt it, Yorick, a voice on the other side of the world. My name on her lips like music. I cradled the voice and let her in. It was beautiful and brave. It was sorrow and joy. And he says, it was worship. And she says, I don't want that, people's praise. And then another guy enters and he says, who would, but for kings and other such devils? Because I think for me, that is the struggle of what she's going to deal with and what we sometimes deal with, our own obligations versus adventure. And I think that too, is also my own inner challenge to motherfuckers who are just nothing but arrogant and like, hey, look at me, I'm fucking cool as shit, you know. And allowing the depth of your spirit to hopefully transcend and have people engage. Because I think what folks nowadays do is to compete with the noise of social media, Farmville, explosions on the Avengers movie. Like, oh, I'm fucking just, I gotta shout even louder. You know, for me, I'm like, fuck all that. I can't. I just want to get more quiet in another way, and hopefully let the patience of the work and you know, hopefully these characters find you on their, you know, you connect with them on their own merit, not from like, oh, that's cool as you know, that's cool as shit. You know, I mean, look, I'm cool with it, but I think there's enough of, I mean, there's fucking like apps that you get dog ears on your face. Now I'm looking like this. Now I'm looking like this. I'm spending 3 hours a fucking day. Like, how am I going to look? I can look like this. Fuck, I'm not like, how many followers do I've got on Instagram? Oh my God, fucking hell. You know, who's following me? Who's a follower? Who am I following? Like psychological bullshit. Like, fuck all of that shit. I just want you to get to the depth of character. And then hopefully that does a bit of inspiration for you. Like, all right, cool. I'm good. I know I'm rambling on like a tangent. I'm like such a tangent motherfucker. I'm sorry.
Hey, I'm with you on that, man. I'm with you on that. Social media, for as good as it could be as bad too. You know, and sometimes I just focus on the good, and I talk comics. You know.
Oh shit! Look at that.
Yeah. And that's why I enjoy. You know, I found this community on Instagram, and I've connected with everybody. Then I jumped on YouTube and I connected with a lot of people, and we just have fun talking about comic books. And then, like, you've seen my Instagram, right? I don't just post comic books. I post music. I post movies. I post like wrestling. And I post because there's a lot of things other than just comics that I love.
Right.
And I use comic books to bring us all together, and then we talk a vast amount of things outside of just comics. You know, so that's what I enjoy about my page on Instagram and doing this, is that we could talk about anything and we have an enjoyment of it. I mean, we talk music. We had a whole episode talking about Saturday morning cartoons and how great that was growing up.
That's cool.
So, and with you talking about music, I know I want to talk about the origins of Stranger Comics, but music was a huge part of it. And there's even some music stuff in the books.
Right.
You know, that I've noticed, you know, like, oh, he's got like musical notes in here.
Yeah.
And I was like, so now, you know, it gets to ask a question about the importance of music, and not only the comic books, and just in general, growing up, listening to music. You talked about Blue Notes Records and how you own the record label or record company. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the music thing.
Yeah, man. Okay. It's such a weird side, like a music story. The first one that popped into my brain was, I'm 12 years old. I'm at a party, and every boy and girl are making out but me. And of course, my best friend is making out with the girl I wanted to make out with. I was a late bloomer. It took me many years later until I had my first kiss. But anyway, so the music that was playing was a cassette called Atlantic Soul Ballads. And I was like, wow, I kind of recognized some of the songs. I was like, what is this? So like a dork, I just started writing down the names of the artist: Otis Redding, Sam and Dave, I think, like Aretha, like all the artists and all the names of the songs. And so when I had my weekend job, I would save up to buy the best of Otis Redding, and then more of his music and so on. And that's why I was such a hardcore, over the top romantic as a kid. That got me nowhere with girls my age. I would like read poetry to them in the assembly hall in front of 700 students and get kicked out. Like I would terrify girls with bad poetry. So music was just so it was so the soundtrack of my life. It was so important. And so I discovered that. And in the boarding house, I was 12, 13, I discovered hip hop. And at the same time, I discovered James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud. And as a very confused mixed dude, that song, I was like, wait, what's happening? Now you gotta, like, my mom is from India. You know, my dad is white, but my heritage on my Indian side has a very multicultural thing. Just saw my picture of my great grandmother for the first time ever on Christmas Day. This beautiful black woman. It's just, I'm still piecing the journey of my puzzle together, which is just, that was the best gift I could have ever got, to be honest. But anyway, so in the boarding house, my first day, I was tipped out of bed by a bunch of 18-year-olds, like stomped on, like nigger, packy, woke, spick, bum, 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 bum. I'm 12, 13 and had a fractured spine. So all the music became my savior, my best friend. It became my armor. Like, oh, cool. Who called me what? And now I'd wait for motherfucker. I was also my father's son. I was saying earlier, like, I felt like I always had to get back on everybody who ever said a bad word to me. So the music then brought about my rage or cold, evil fear, like, or, okay, as I got older, how to be calm within the spirit, just be calm. So music was, music is the first love, is my first love and my savior. It wasn't, so that was an instant. I have another instance in the boarding house when I was watching Top of the Pops, the British equivalent of like MTV, and this group comes on, Club Nouveau, and they're doing their 80s version of Lean on Me, right? Right? And we're in this shitty little room in the boarding house, and one guy goes, "Get the nigger." And I'm like, whoa, whoever he is, he's fucked, oh, that's me. And then I had all these 18, 19-year-olds jump me. And they held me down in a headlock. And then one kid, this 19-year-old guy, grabs a video cassette and just starts smashing my face. I'm in a headlock. And it's just hitting me like this, boom, boom, boom. And in between each smash on the face, in the doorway is my housemaster, which I always love that name, housemaster. It's so appropriate. Mr. Gallantry Smith. Like, if there was ever a fucking name for a teacher that wasn't gallant, it was Mr. Gallantry Smith in the doorway, watching me, a 12-year-old, 13-year-old boy, getting his face smashed with a video cassette, and he was wearing a tweed suit, and you could tell he had an erection. This is like literally the me in formative years going, okay, it just created like a real inner rage. Mr. Gallantry Smith as a guy ended up punching out at 13. He's sitting on a chair calling me a packy, and I just knocked him out. So these types of things, music, and without going too much down into that rabbit hole of race right now and so on, but music became like how for me it's the vibration of frequency of spirit, and I think it's the most powerful thing in the universe is the vibration of spirit, and I think music is that representation thereof, and I think that's why today and where we're at in music today is so concerning. And because I believe if you want to strip away a culture, you strip away a culture by elevating that something that has no spirit. And I'm not like, because I'm a fucking hardcore hip hop head in the whole nine, but you look at it transitionally from like Black American music is the soundtrack to the fucking world. And it is what binds us collectively around, whether you're into heavy metal, I don't give a fuck, that comes from Zeppelin, that comes from the blues. You can trace it all back. It's like, this is my record label. I put out 25 albums of historical black music from 1920s Delta blues and New Orleans jazz, and seeing how the migration patterns come, Chicago blues, doo-wop, bebop, hard bop, free jazz, jazz funk, stanky funk, rhythm and blues, seeing the complexion of America, crack cocaine hitting in communities. Oh, the sound now sounds like this, yada yada. You can see it all from, you take a step back and it's fucking savage, man. And then you take a step back even further and say, if you go to the roots of when people were allowed to speak or sing in the fields, were they allowed to? No, it can only be here in the church. You can go back, it's right. This is the beauty of where we're at now, is if we don't want to be surface motherfuckers, and we want to understand and have appreciation, whether you're white, black, or brown, to the realities of the history, you can. So rather than having like an uninformed conversation and be like, oh, blah, 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 it's just my opinion, but I don't fucking know. I'm gonna eat some more pizza, fuck it. Then shut the fuck up, and until you do learn, until you do know. So you have some appreciation. And I think music, the soundtrack of America, will tell you all you need to know. I sound like such an obnoxious dickhead saying all this shit. I do. I'm sure I do. I don't give a fuck. I didn't find God until I heard Coltrane. I thought all that shit was bullshit. I heard Coltrane, and then I heard his wife, Alice Coltrane, and I fucking cried like a baby. And I was like, that for me was a revelation.
Music for me, I grew up, my parents had the radio on 24/7. So the first thing you're going to hear is Luther Vandross.
Right.
You're going to hear some Teddy Pendergrass. You're going to hear Barry White, Minnie Robinson. And I love music, from all different types of styles, even jazz music. When I started listening to more jazz with the B.B. Kings and the Coltrane, and one of my favorites, Bobby Blue Bands.
Oh yeah,
I love Bobby Blue Band, and I see how music is today, and a lot of it is just trendy music. People do challenges to them, do little dance trend stuff, and I'm like, ain't nothing that came out today is going to last in the future compared to what we grew up with that still stands the test of time.
Well, it's everything that is popular since the 50s on has been a combination of the blues and gospel.
Right.
Yes.
And if you notice, everyone loves Beyonce. She's had a 20-plus year long career. Mm-hmm. Everyone loves Adele. They're blues singers.
Mm-hmm.
Can you name someone else that's had a career in the 2000s longer than a year or two that doesn't have a blues background? I can't.
I mean, I think that's the reality is a lot of, Adele and Beyonce, there's, whether you fuck with their music or not, you can tell there's a respect for, and not just a respect, there's a joining of spirit, like it's a passing down. It's I want to honor this and so on. And and an attempt to respect the artistry and craft as well. And one kid was telling me the other day we were talking about music and so on, about the state of music today. And she was like, yeah, no, I fuck with all kind of music today, whatever. And I know it's not really the same, and I know what good music is and so on, but it's not about that anymore. It's just a popularity contest.
Yeah.
Music today is a popularity contest. And when you think of that, it is like, oh shit, that's fucking deep, and that's terrifying, because if music, what it's meant to do, again, coming back to the frequency of spirit, and it can heal, it can get you through war, it can get you through tragedy, it can help you deal with love and loss and so on. And now it's a popularity contest. I think that was just so smack me in the face. Like, oh, I guess that's no, and again, not for every artist, of course.
Yeah.
But that is part of now our collective, zeitgeist of what we do in life, whether we do any kind of art form or whatever. Like, am I popular?
Have either of you heard the Axis of Awesome 4-chord song?
No, what's that?
Well, they basically just used 4 chords and sing some of the most popular songs of the past few years because they all just regurgitate the same stuff. No real innovation.
That's
Which is why I don't. Jazz is not my favorite kind of music, but I do enjoy it, and I respect it more than I enjoy it because of what it does and the fact that you don't know what's going to happen when you listen to jazz. It's so special, and I like heavy metal for the same reason because it's not. You can't just say, "Oh, it's all 4-note songs."
No, God, it's so the technicality.
Arrangements are in jazz and heavy metal.
Yes, it's so funny. Yeah, 100%. A guy, my CCO, he's a huge metalhead, and we talk about the same. Like the complexity in metal mathematically is fucking insane. Like he was talking about going, he's a hardcore into Meshuggah, and he was breaking down all this, and I was like, my God, it's just it's genius. It's just genius stuff. I think the thing for me too, though, is there are certain things and certain sounds of jazz, like depending on the era that you listen to or the album that you listen to, because jazz is so vast.
Yeah.
I think if you're into like Zeppelin style blues or Jimi Hendrix kind of sounds from that era, late 60s through maybe 77, you'll find certain eras in jazz that you'll go, oh, fuck, I didn't know I'd fuck with that. That's my shit. And so it's just those, for me, were the introductions to things that I'm like, oh, I had the same kind of thing as you were when I was younger. Like, I respect it, and it's, my God, I can tell it's genius, but it's tough to follow, or, I'm not kind of, where is it at? But there are certain gateway songs that if, having to send you a couple of tracks, and if you're into Zeppelin or Sabbath or Hendrix or some of that, the late 60s, early 70s, mid 70s rock. At the same time, some of the jazz heads were also being inspired by the sounds of that era as well. And also that's on the heels of 1950 Chicago blues. And it's this wonderful, this wonderful spirit of movement that you might be into.
It's funny how you talk about like music and spirit, because that's what music is all about, uplifting the spirit. When you're really connected with that song and listening to it, it really lifts up your spirit, or it may make you feel sad depending on how the song is. But either way, you're emotionally connected to that song, whether it's upbeat or whether it's downbeat or slow jam or whatnot. And it does something to your spirit that, connect with it, and you just vibe with that whole every note of the song. And that's what I feel is completely lacking in music today, whereas I can't really connect to the music because it's just noise to me.
Yeah, it's tough for me. I mean, it's tough for me too. It's so funny you talked about, bring it back to the book. So this book is called The Untamed: A Sinner's Prayer, right? So do you guys watch this guy's bringing a fuckload of comics to the house. UPS delivery. All right. Do you remember the show, Luke Cage show, right? And
yeah.
Each episode, I believe, is named after a hip hop track. I think it might have been Gangstar track.
Yeah, Gangstars.
Okay, so I was a huge Gangstar head. And then, funny enough, when I had my record label, I licensed one of their songs on one of the compilations I put out. But anyway, so this is called The Untamed: A Sinner's Prayer. This is named after a Ray Charles blues tune called Sinner's Prayer. The sequel is called The Untamed Killing Floor. There's a famous blues tune called Killing Floor. Zeppelin does a cover of it. And there's a Skip James blues tune called The Hard Time Killing Floor Blues. The new Untamed book, which I think I had a comic of it lurking around here somewhere. I put shit down, it just disappeared. There we go. This one is called The Untamed Still a Fool, named after a Muddy Waters blues tune called Still a Fool. Now, if you know Muddy Waters had a song called Rolling Stone, hence the rock and roll group Rolling Stones, right? And Still a Fool is like the song Rolling Stone, but a much more dirgy, fucking savage, brutal version of that. So if you want to listen to a badass blues tune, we'll listen to Muddy Waters' Still a Fool. It will fuck your world up. So each Untamed book is my tip of the hat, my low-key tip of the hat to blues tunes that have moved me over the years in the subtitles. So these are the kind of the emotions of those songs are for a man who wants to be a better father and love and loss and all the kind of wonderful things blues artists used to talk about when they would have to leave their woman to go and work in the factories and get up to maybe to no good and you fucked up, I got to go back and so on. So that's my, I do a lot of tipping of the hat to that.
Music is the most unique of all the art forms because even mediocre music will grant you an emotion of some sort.
It can. It certainly can.
So, with music being like an important part of Stranger Comics, with it being the subtitles and you actually having some notes in the comics,
right?
What was the creation like? How was the process of creating Stranger Comics? The origin of putting in all this hard work to form this company, this publishing company, Stranger Comics.
Well, it started with the Untamed story. Honestly, that one that I read in the beginning was it's weird. So I just being very honest with you guys. Hello, Tracy. I'm crazy today. Goodness gracious. I had a son that was born, and I was rocking him to sleep. He was newborn, and I was overtired, and I saw the curtains were doing this, and I saw demon patterns on the wall. Like it was really crazy, and I was overtired, and I'd done wrong, and I had sinned, and I wrote down, "I'm a bad man." Day one, I make a deal with the devil to make it right. Day one, I come to town. Blah blah blah. So I started writing this in pencil on a piece of paper. Day two, I'll do this. Day three. So then after 10 minutes, I just took a step back and I read 4 pages of me just spilling out this thing, whatever it was, and it was literally the origins of the Untamed story. And I was like, oh my God, this actually make a good fucking story. And it's set in my fantasy world that I've been playing D&D and live action role playing and so on. This would make an incredible movie or TV show and comic book. 7 issues, 7 episodes, whatever. So I started to write the comic. Then I shopped the comic around to various publishing companies. And that, when I realized, again, wanting to protect Niobe, excuse me, I started Stranger Comics to protect her. And when I would write the stories, when I'd write the Untamed, I listened to, again, without wanting to sound all lofty and bullshit, whenever I write, I usually put on a certain type of music that will move my spirit and take me just down on a certain type of journey and pathway. In addition to, I don't wait for inspiration. I think that's dangerous. I think you like Hemingway to Spike Lee to Stephen King talk about, don't wait for the muse to show up, just write. And in doing the work, the muse will show. You know, it's just, you know, if you have an idea, treat it like a child. You have to take care of it and nurture it, feed it, you know. But when I create music, I always have to sit within my spirit and have music playing. So when I wrote The Untamed, I listened to a lot of Gorecki, classical Gorecki music, the Raging Bull soundtrack, to a lot of painful classical music, to spaghetti western music, and to Fela Kuti, the incredible Nigerian Afro funk originator, and a lot of Alice Coltrane, a lot of Alice.
Man, that when you started telling that story, I immediately had a song pop in my head.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's by a band called Amon Amarth, and there's a line in there that says, "I know who I am. I am an evil man," but the title of the song is Hero.
Oh, that's great. I love that. That's great. Is that a metal tune?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the band sounds familiar. I believe Daryl, because he plays me a lot of stuff, and a lot of those composers, their lyrics,
they're Scandinavian.
Oh, they're Scandinavian. Okay, they're so amazing. Some of those artists, their lyrics are so deep, it's crazy. Yeah. So that really is the origins of the storyline of The Untamed, reflects a man knowing who he is in his core. You know, we always say in The Untamed, like, before he died, his wife was on the verge of turning him from wickedness, but they were murdered, and so was he. So again, I think there are themes of redemption. I think when I really think about Niobe, To the Stranger, to So On. Okay, so you know, we're in development at HBO, and it's funny. One of the executives, he asked me when he read the stories, I pitched him, and it was unlike a lot of the other folks that had asked me things. They were like, he said, "Is the stranger you in the story, The Untamed?" And I was like, wow, yeah, it does reflect a lot of my hopes to be a better man. And he's like, okay, can I ask you something else? Is Niobe you? And I'm like, yes, that's my hope to who I could become, and my struggle of my identity, and so on. So these are both very serious reflections of my journey. And ultimately, when I really take a step back and look at the stranger and Niobe and who these are, you would love Sergio Back Home Someday. Oh my God. Okay. If you can, send me that on Instagram at Stranger Comics, or I'll screen grab that.
Link is in the description. I put all the links in the description.
You did? Okay, perfect. Yeah, so yeah, send me a message of that song. Any songs you recommend, please send me a message on Instagram at Stranger Comics. But what I was so astute about what he was saying was, he had me, you know, dead to rights, was it is the search for family and acceptance and wanting to be better and atoning for second chances. I think that's where we always go. If we had a reset button, ding, there's always these questions. Would you rather have $50 million and you're at this age, or go back? You know, it's we always have this, you know, on this journey, we crest certain points and look back and go, fuck, I made a mistake. How do I atone? Or can I say sorry? Or could I do better? Or do I run away from it? You know, and I can't essentially outrun myself, you know. So these are the themes I think that are really prevalent within, I mean, any story, even that dwarf book. That dwarf book is, yes, on the surface, it's fucking dwarves and orcs, big war, magic axes, you know, all that cool shit, spells flying off, elves shooting arrows. But at its core, it's a dwarf about a guy who has a cursed axe. And he has to collect 2 souls to be rid of this axe. And when you discover the reason why he has a cursed axe is because he murdered a man that raped and killed the woman he loved, and that happened to be his brother. So he murders his brother. And then and this axe is the penance for his murder. But should he have gone through with it? You're right. So there's all these, all these types of themes. I don't care how how fantastical it is, how science fiction-y it is, unless you connect on some kind of level with the character, like you did, Puff, with Peter Parker. You know, you have to connect on a real level.
Yeah, and you know, one thing I love about your IG lives, you know, not only the books you show to sell, but you have great stories to tell. I mean, your personality when it comes to explaining those stories and stuff. I mean, you even had Simply Incredible saying, "Man, the passion just coming through," and that's why, you know, I love watching your live streams, because you always come correct with the passion and, you know, the storytelling and explanations of it, and it really sucks you in on wanting to purchase these books. That's why I purchased about a couple of books last week, because I want to read more about these characters.
Thank you.
Know, and I can't wait to get them and read more.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's so funny. We were driving. I appreciate that a lot. I do. I mean, I pour my soul into this shit, and when you create and you're doing this, you're following your dreams, right? So when someone asks me what's the hardest thing about doing the stuff, and it's like, you know, the time you spend, so much time, there's no day off. I mean, you know.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Looks like
Rose. I hope you can come back, man.
If you can hear us, you may need to drop out, and then you can reuse that same email link.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, you can tell he's got the passion for this stuff. He was starting to say there. He poured his heart and soul into it, and you can tell when he talks.
Yeah, and considering that, you know, this is something that he started from childhood and worked hard to continue to develop it, you know, he really put his all in it.
Well, if he's anything like how I am, then he probably also just has to get it out of his head somehow. And this is the best way to do it.
Yeah. And it's, you know, when you put it to paper, you know, when you got something going through your head, you put it to paper and apply it. And like you said earlier, taking certain life situations and what's going on in the world and adding it to your story, it just makes for, you know, a unique and personal storyline. And that's why I really enjoy it. You know, like when I first discovered him, yeah, he's back.
Sorry, guys. My internet's been like tripping out recently. Apologies.
The last we heard was you had poured your heart and soul into this.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So when folks ask me what's the most difficult thing, it's like all you do is work 7 days a week. Like the rest of the weekend, working, meetings on the rest of the day, tomorrow and Monday. But I'm following my dreams. And so the hardest thing is understanding the people who I love or who love me in my life, they don't get to spend time with me as well, which makes me have to honor the time I spend creating. Otherwise, why the fuck am I doing it? I can't do this shit. Just be like, hey, doing some comics, great. And representation, just this or surface. I have to be as vulnerable as possible into the work, and hopefully someone has a connection on the other side, because otherwise I'm disrespecting my son. I'm disrespecting the time I could be spending riding bikes and fucking eating peaches and just chilling out. Like, you know, I'm also disrespecting someone who's going to spend $4 to $100 in a rare comic or whatever. I'm disrespecting the person who's going to support the efforts of myself and the artists and the people who collaborate. I'm disrespecting them. So everything has to be as honest as possible, as vulnerable as possible. Otherwise, I should do something fucking different. I'm not in this shit for. I don't do this shit for clout or for someone to go, oh, well done. So I don't give a. I have to respect my son. I have to respect the ancestors. I have to respect the spirit. I mean, otherwise, and again, I'm older now, right? I'm 47, and I sound so fucking up my own ass, but it's just the reality. My editor, we were driving to a convention. He's like, "Oh, you're so fucking good at selling," and he goes, he goes, you're so passionate about your shit that you get people to buy it based on how passionate you are. But he goes, I don't even know if it's as good as we think it is. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Like, see, there you go. And that's and it's, I think it's the struggle too with the artist to go, half the time I'm like, I'm just shit. I am shit. This sucks. And the other half of me is like, I'm kind of the shit. It's this massive, it's never like, oh, I can just be even keel and cool about it. It's this constant internal struggle, but you strive to do the best you can.
You mentioned cons and the convention scene, and we all know what happened last year, with the cancellation of cons due to COVID and stuff. But y'all did a lot of cons, to put yourselves out there. And I've seen pictures, of you at con shows and a couple of cosplayers who met you and stuff. And I'm like, man, if you come to MegaCon, I know I'm probably gonna buy up the whole table and stuff, because I know just getting to talk with you about your work and these characters, and just to have a good conversation at a con will be awesome. So tell us about the con experience of Stranger Comics.
Woo! Con experience, man. We do okay at conventions. It's definitely like straight up, Puffy, is like that shit was 90% of our income. So I'm not very good at tech, right? So I'm gonna have to call you up and you'll have to walk me through how to do a fucking StreamYard. Like straight up, I'm like, I know what I'm good at, I know what I suck at. And at a convention, it's just me and you, and I'm just gonna be able to talk to you. And then hopefully, and it's no bullshit when I speak to people. I really want to. I think if someone's coming to a con, they've spent fucking arse loads of money to get to a convention, to get in the door. So the least I could do is not be like, yeah, it's $5. Let me know if you want to hear the story. Like what? And I'm not shy, obviously, and I know that's okay. And that's something I'm good at, is being able to just be like, hey, come and check this out. Oh, I got to tell you this fucking story right now, and be like, all right, fucking crazy person. And then they hear the story and go, well, that's actually pretty fucking good. What do you think? I think it's pretty good. And then suddenly people are buying our stuff and they see the art and they hear the story. And I'm hoping the story resonates on some level, in some capacity, whether it's the musical element or the redemption quality or the representation part of it, or the Niobe aspects of her wanting to connect with her ancestors who might not be down, and like, well, you're this, and oh, but okay, and all these things that we can all on some connection relate to, and like, yo, I kind of like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and never see this shit in comic books like this. Fuck it, okay, give me a thing, and then I do great bundle discount deals, and so usually motherfuckers are walking away with not a book but the table, and so for us that's in person it's a lot easier to make sure someone can't feel like, oh, I can walk away. I want you to walk away with something, and then because I want you to experience the passion that multiple people have put into this. And it's the same reason I think we're in development at HBO, is because we've turned down a lot of folks, and that sounds arrogant. We're appreciative of people that are excited about the work that we do, and it's honestly people that have gone to conventions and people that support me online and all these various things that allow us to continue to grow and continue to create and continue to make these kind of connections. Like straight up, it's fucking mind blowing to me. I remember the first time a Niobe cosplayer came to the booth. It was like, I just didn't compute. Like, oh, this is strange, because you're in the lab going, is this shit fucking working? I don't know. Fucking hopefully this shit is. I'm working on 7 days a week and I'm risking my everything on this. Every aspect of my life, I risked on this.
So how long have you been going to conventions?
I mean, with the first con we did was back in, as far as a con, as Stranger Comics was back in 2009. So if any collectors are out there, you want to get, I've got one on the table actually. I can show one of the issues. Whoop, there it is. If anybody wants the very first appearance of Niobe in this Untamed book, or we have the other version, it's not on the table, but this is 2009 printing. We shared a booth with 11, I think, other publishers, and it was just a clusterfuck. And, so 2009 was the first time, but shout out to all those guys for allowing us to be in a booth with them. And in doing that, let us know this is how we could rock. We could crush at conventions.
And how many conventions do you try to average out a year?
I would say we would probably average 12. Right. And there are some years where we did a lot more. But when I say conventions, it was also like, I'll do a fucking D&D group's warehouse and there's 100 people playing D&D and I'm just selling a couple of comics. It's so funny when you hear hip hop groups like, yeah, we were rapping to like 2 motherfuckers. Like that's been me. Like, okay, I'll do your high school event, or I'll do this, or I'll do this. And, and in years that I've done that, I still do San Diego and New York. I'll do the big events. I don't have any,
So a lot of the bigger events are still in a toss-up for 2021. What is your schedule as far as conventions for 2021 as of now?
As of now, my staff is like, primary concern for health. So unless I feel like everything is good, not taking on a downturn, but I lost my godfather to COVID on New Year's Eve. And I lost a very good friend. And I actually just got the news literally half an hour before we hopped on that my godmother and aunt passed away. So within the space of 5 or 6 weeks, I've lost 3 very close people. And my godmother and aunt, and that wasn't COVID related, but I got the news half an hour before I jumped on with you guys. That's probably why I'm like, health is primary importance to making sure my crew are safe. So I wouldn't even want to speculate until they're good, until I feel like that's okay. Because that's really.
So that means that most of the stuff you'll probably be doing this year is kind of like this right here, virtual stuff.
So
how am I going to ask this? If someone wants to have you on like Sean did, is it as simple as messaging you on IG in the description below?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I've seen you on Jay Blitz.
Yeah, we did the auction. It was amazing. Yeah, I'm pretty. I mean, here's the thing, and I appreciate you saying that. We're like, we have to pivot as a business, and I don't think the world will ever go back to being how it was, and people will become used to a lot more virtual, a lot more, fuck it, I don't have to go to the store. I'm now climatized to this experience. When cons do go back, I think it'll be still amazing and still a big like, oh my God, finally I get to be around my people, But as a business, we've had to pivot. And what we've done is realizing that it's just, if I can bring the same kind of love and energy to a weekly live and do more interviews and chat like with folks that I haven't met before, like, in person, like you guys, that to me is a new venture and something I want to really enjoy. Plus also when I do cons, well, we have this thing where we have big booths and we do really well. We have one chair, and it's like, ooh, who's gonna sit in the chair? I don't let people sit. I sound like a fucking savage, but when you work in the booth of Stranger Comics, like, ooh, you sit in the chair, ooh, you know. But now I'm 47, and now I want to sit in the chair, you know, because I'm like, da, 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 whoever's walking past, you know. I don't, and I think it's fun as well, like. It's this thing where you have this opportunity to connect again with the spirit. Someone's this moment, and even with people that don't align with your political beliefs or your philosophical beliefs, I fucking love that. That shit to me is even more fun. Like, you know, I'm left as fuck, and I don't really care. But if someone's right and they've got all the MAGA or MAGA, whatever the fuck that shit on, I usually go, hey, yo, you got to check this shit out. Come and take a look. Authentic representation. Come and buy this shit. Look at this. Oh, don't you love this shit? Isn't this important? Let me tell you the fucking story. It's a story about a man who's stuck in purgatory. And the guy's like, purgatory? Right, you can relate. Like, you have fun and fuck with them, you know. And then they're like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I find that shit very intriguing. But on the flip, we've had our booth smashed in, like, by like psycho, you know, folks that are like, oh, I don't like the look of that shit, you know. Like there was one morning at a convention, I was like, all right, guys, we're gonna get up, we're gonna be down there at 8 o'clock. We got like, what he said to me. Thank you, Simply Incredible Podcast. It's very sweet of you. I feel like underneath it, like my knees are broke, everything's fucked. But so I'm like, okay, we got to be down at the convention at 8 o'clock, first in the fucking thing. We've got to make sure. And everyone's like, Seb, we've set up the booth. It's fine. It's great. Give me another hour to sleep in. Jesus, you know, I'm like, no. We get down to the booth, and it was completely destroyed. And we have a 20 by 10 two corners, you know, big banners and shit. And a forklift truck had said, I don't like that fucking booth. I'm going to fucking completely demolish it. And they didn't realize, but they left a roll of tape from the, you know, from the Teamsters. We had 2 hours to assemble a booth that normally takes us 8 to 14 hours to assemble, the way I like it. And then start like nothing happened. And then if you complain, you're like, well, you know, so, you know, I'm not going to mention the name of the convention, but they're actually very good about it. But, you know, but it's because I was wearing a T-shirt when I was setting up called saying Black Heroes Matter. And I was getting these really dirty looks. And I have a kid's book. Yeah.
Black heroes do matter.
Right. 100%. And my good friend Urias is a guy that creates those T-shirts. And you know, have you seen at San Diego Comic Con to reflect a Good Day in Harlem, the classic jazz photograph on the steps? He rocks that at San Diego. This wasn't at San Diego though, but that was getting dirty looks. I have a kid's book called I Am Mixed to celebrate all cultures, and I had fucking death threats over that shit. So you know, so when you do this kind of stuff, you also, you know, I've had, but I've run a record label for many years and selling CDs out of the back of my Mustang 65 on Crenshaw. So I'm okay with dealing with people in person. I have an easier time, honestly, guys, dealing with people talking shit in person than I do online. It's a lot easier for me to brush it off or like, you know, embrace them. You know, I don't really care. Once in a blue moon do I get upset and angry if someone's being rude or disrespectful in person. I just think it's cute.
You transform into the Hulk, man.
Not anymore. Fuck, mate. Like, no, not anymore. That shit was a long time ago. I'd like. Do you ever see The Wonder Years? Do you remember that show?
Yeah, I remember.
Do you remember when Kevin Arnold went to hit the bully, and he was like, in slow motion. I did this for me, for everybody, blah, and he misses and hits the shoulder and he gets the shit beaten out of him. I'm sure that would be me now. I'd have all the intention of the perfect punch and then miss completely and then just go down.
So I have to ask, you said 8 to 14 hours to set it up the way you like it. How much of that time is the way I like it part?
I'm so glad you caught that. Yes, a very good amount of time. Like I don't think I realized I was OCD until we did conventions. That the books, the hardcovers have to be perfectly like this, and then the trades like this, and then I reorganize the tables, and everything has to be fucking primo. The presentation has to be primo. And I obsess over it and then the irony too, by the end of day one, at the end of the evening, like, you know, people have like, oh yeah, you know, move things around a bit. So yeah. But I believe it helps with the experience, you know.
Yeah. You had mentioned about, you know, politically, some people being different. I probably am different than you are, but I will say that there is a huge underrepresentation for Black characters in comics. And thank you for noticing that and supplying something, because I want you can't use any of your own characters and you can't use any created by Milestone. How many Black characters can you name that don't have Black in them?
Right. I know. I've seen that challenge, and I'd be terrible with it.
Yeah. So there's still some work needs to be done in that department.
I mean, if you really think about it, guys, this book, it doesn't matter your political affiliations or beliefs. This is history. When you think how long comics have been around for, the fact that my little old company in 2015 was the first with a Black female author and artist and hero, nationally distributed comic ever in 2015. So when I promote that or I talk about that freely and people go like, yeah, but you should focus on the story. I'm like, if only you knew. I actually do focus on the story. I do. But don't discredit the fact that's a fucking reality. Before Marvel did the Black Panther thing and all the rest of that shit, like when there is change, like the amount, okay. In 2009, I was approached by various people in the entertainment industry that they said, I'll make The Untamed if you make Niobe a white boy. So when you have those realities of truth, and even when I say that sometimes, like people don't believe it, but this is just like, you know, these are just truths. And then in 2015, when we made history, a lot of those same people came around like, oh my God, we're interested now. Right? When I started Stranger Comics, I was told, wait, I was trying to get investment. I don't want to spend my own dough. You know, I want to risk everything. You know, I got family. Yeah, it's a fucking very difficult business. That's why people said don't necessarily understand. If you're an independent comic creator, you are watching your fucking pennies. It is a dollars and cents. It is brutally difficult to make a living and support family. So when I started Stranger, it was like Black people don't read it. There are not enough Black people that read comics that will support you, and white people are not going to support characters that are just, you know, with Black folks and so on. There are no fantasy comics out there that actually are successful as a universe. Everyone that's tried to do it has failed as a universe. And also, by the way, the leaders are female. Women don't read comics. Not enough women read comics. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do all three of those things, you know, and I'm gonna risk everything I have on it. I'm gonna roll the fucking dice. Every financier that I knew was like, that's not fucking. These are You got the three strike. You're going against the grain with three fucking things already, and there's already a push of folks that don't want to see that. There's anti people that don't want to see it. Not like, oh, just the casual reader, like, oh, it's black female elf. I don't like Lord of the Rings, not my shit. Whatever. Fantasy should stay in movies and books. Black people should stay in hip hop. I mean, you know, you just hear the stupidest shit.
All I can say to that is the one guy who's been gushing the most in our chat about you and saying he's going to buy everything's a 48-year-old white guy.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful. I mean, thank you. I appreciate that so fucking much, and I feel like this is the thing too. Is there's a shock value, right? When folks from different viewpoints, politically or spiritually or religiously, whatever the shit is. There's a shock value of like, unless you're a fucking racist or you have inherently, you want to do me harm. If you do, then you're my fucking enemy, and I'll fucking smite you, right? Oh, so that is just straight real. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. My God, you're fucking awesome. Thank you so much. If you have different views, then we have opportunities to connect and learn. And I might actually surprise you. Like, I thought all those motherfuckers were like this. He actually was really nice. Like, I've literally seen people that I don't agree with, I would probably say on 80% of shit, go, I came to his booth at Denver and I was just watching and then I bought stuff. He was really nice to me. Like, it's a fucking surprise. Like, you know, and then go, whoa. And I think this is the other thing too, I always think this too, Will, as well, to that note, is like, who the fuck am I? I don't have it all figured out. And when people say like, oh, I got it figured out. Like, bet? Really? Where the fuck is that handbook? You got that shit figured out? I don't have it figured out at all. I'm just, you know, these are my beliefs right now, and they might have been different 10 years ago. So if I can have the perspective that I've grown as a person in 10 years, and some of these thoughts I had 10 years ago are not what they are today. Maybe this motherfucker that I'm talking to that I think is a cunt, he might actually be fucking awesome in 10 years. Maybe this is just what his journey is now. So if I can have this perspective of empathy, that's where I think is this thing that we deal with now, is our challenge of empathy for someone we don't agree with, to fuck that motherfucker. You know, unless you cross a certain border to, oh, you're in fuck that motherfucker, and I can tell you facts, but you choose to ignore it because you've got your security blanket on. Have the patience to have the fucking balls to be vulnerable and not be right, because you might learn something like, oh, you know what, that is a perspective that challenges my foundation of being, and maybe I have been wrong in an area, and the same for me too. Like Malcolm X has this quote, and it's my favorite quote, and I usually say it and I always butcher it because my memory's shit, but he goes, don't be in such a hurry to condemn those who don't think like you do or act like you do now, because there once was a time you don't think or act like you do today. That to me is the measure of growing in all facets, and allows me to say I can meet someone I don't agree with, because I might change to their perspective in 10 years and they might change to my perspective in 10. We're just on our journey, right? And you know, so why am I going to condemn this person? Because
oh man, he froze again. Man.
Sorry guys, I got this huge Zoom with the studio on Monday too. I better get this shit fixed before then.
You know, I want to take it back to when you was talking about, you know, Niobe. This was the first Niobe comic I brought. You know, cool. And back, remember when I said there's good on social media and it's bad? The good was discovering Stranger Comics.
Oh, that's cool.
Because you discover various independent comic publishers.
Right.
And when I saw your page and I saw this cover, Black female, and I'm a fan of fantasy and sword and sorcery. We talk about Conan and Red Sonja and stuff like that. So I was like, fantasy with some sword and sorcery in there in Black cast. I was like, I'm down for this.
Right.
And when you said earlier about, Black people don't read comics, that's what the notion was. I swear, man, I was trying for the hardest to find pages on either Instagram or YouTube that featured Black people talking about comics. And it's hard. I had to find some pages and slowly they came to it, but it was hard to find people of my skin color to talk comic books with. Like most of my friends growing up, they know about comics, but they're not like comic book readers. They like pick up an issue here or there. Right. And they'll just talk about the characters, or they only watch the animated series and the movies. But in terms of finding Black comic book readers, it was tough. And slowly but surely, I found some pages, and then I'm instantly following them because they're Black and they love comic books. It's right there in my wheelhouse. And
sure.
I'm fortunate. I'm happy that I'm part of a group on Saturdays, part of the Comic Hall and Roundtable discussion. When I discovered these brothers who were my age and older, and they talking comic books, I was ecstatic. These brothers doing live streams talking comic books, and I subscribed and I started conversating with them, and now I'm a member of them. I'm part of the crew. I'm on the show every Saturday night. So, and I followed them like 4 or 5 years ago. I never would have thought that I would have been part of that group. But it's a huge accomplishment for me because I'm part of a group of Black comic book readers who love reading comic books, who love collecting comic books.
That's awesome.
So they are out there. We just got to find them. That's the whole thing.
I think it's just, you feel like you connect with your tribe, right, on multiple levels. Like, first off, you connect on, inherently culture. You can connect on the same sports team. You connect on, we will have a love of comics. So there's multiple levels to connect with various tribes of folks. And then what's cool is then they intersect, and you have the opportunity, like you guys, like you two, the intersection of your love, and then that opens up, into other areas as well. And then it allows us to connect in multiple areas. And I think that's the beauty of what comics can do. And like you were saying, Puff, earlier, as far as like the benefits of social media. If you can embrace the benefits of social media, then that's the you can find your tribe. They are out there.
I got a question for both of you.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, Sean, they're out there. You just got to find them. And you had mentioned that you had made history with Niobe in 2015.
Yep.
Do either of you think the big publishers have started noticing? Because Far Sector came out in 2019. I don't know if you both – I know Sean knows what that is. Do you, Sebastian?
Sure.
You think they noticed?
I know they noticed based on the calls and emails I got and artists that people try to poach, and yes, they noticed. I noticed just on a fundamental level, big businesses are they see a look at the origins of hip hop or rock and roll. You look at the origins of any kind of movement, and then it's like this ocean liner moves. The Eye of Sauron is like, okay, we must now do this too, and we must dominate the world and crush these little motherfuckers. How many? Ironheart, that came out. Naomi, that came out with my good friend David Walker. Not to say that some of these folks weren't doing similar things, because I don't want to do I don't want to necessarily honor a sweeping brushstroke, cast any kind of doubt on particular people that are doing this shit anyway. But the answer is yes. I know Niobe made a fucking huge difference with those big two, because if there weren't any Black female writers and artists and heroes naturally distributed, and suddenly they were like, oh fuck, we got to get our announcements out that we've just hired so and so and we're doing this now and so on, and like, why don't we? Do we have any Black female writers? We don't. Okay, go and get some. I just saw this announcement in Huffington Post, and then who the fuck is Stranger Comics? And then also within some of the indie circles, some of the folks are like, fuck that motherfucker. Who the fuck is he? And so some are like, yay. Oh, and the intermediaries like, yay, well done. God, that's so fuck that motherfucker. To, yeah, I'm fucking down. Thank you. I'm down. And you've seemed really hardworking and honest and passionate. I'm 100% going to support you. And those types of folks are beautiful. So it's just a gambit, but the big, the quick answer is yes. I know for a fact Niobe made a huge difference, massively, because I remember going to a convention the following year, going like, "Oh look, some Black fantasy comics. Okay, that's awesome. Oh look, some fantasy comics. That's awesome. Some Black comics. That's awesome." I know folks that have contacted me directly and kind enough and to have the humility or kindness to say, you inspired me to do this, and that's the hope is there's just more of this shit, and that's what it should be, and just making sure the story is fucking beautiful and nuanced, or at least the effort of making the story, because for folks that usually write the checks, they just want to get the headline, and they're looking at their bottom line like, okay, so if it's Black, whatever, okay, I can make X amount of money during Black History Month, my sales will go up this, my bottom line is this. Black people, they support everything Black, right? As if there's a fucking monolith on Black people, right? There's this concept that, there's all these absurd concepts of like the Black community, like, wait, the one in Queens or Brooklyn? Oh, you mean New York, or you mean in Texas? Which community are you talking about? But we're on social media, so it's now all like this, is it? So, and I think to your thing, Puffer, you were saying earlier, like you picked up Niobe because it hopefully creates an immediate resonance for like, oh, this could be my mother, my sister, my daughter. This is me. And finally, this is me, and not done in a way that you can tell that, yeah, I spent some dough on that cover, and this has weight to it. This character has a story to her. This isn't just a Black Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings character. This character you can see in that image, and in this image, just in her eyes, you can see there is a weight to her story. That shit to me is really, really important. So whether you're white or Black, but especially if you're Black and you see these characters, it's when you pick it up, it's not just a surface moment. This is okay. And coming back to the coffee table books, I will sit this shit on my coffee table, and when people come over, like, yeah, motherfucker, that's me. That's important.
Well, I gotta say, I've enjoyed this interview thing here. When I first came on, Puff asked me if I wanted to remain on because he knew I had never really read.
Sure.
I'm glad I stayed.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you want, we'll like get a chance, definitely pop on our Thursday lives. I talk a lot of absurd shit, and if you're a collector, we have opportunities to win stuff every Thursday, which is really fun. And we're building a lovely little community. And then just as a heads up for you guys, on the 25th, every Thursday will I do these lives, but on the 25th of this month, I'm going to do a online Stranger Con where it's going to be I'll sound even more crazy. And I'll be like, ah, like if you've ever seen on TV or if you've been to England, the fruit market salesman on the corner in England, like, I've got five oranges. I got 5 oranges. Right, I'll sell you that. You know, it's very wheeling and dealing, but it's a blast.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but I've been to a cattle auction before here in the South. So
there you go. Okay, perfect. How are those?
You have to pay attention, else you'll be buying something and you didn't know you bought it because it just goes by fast.
Oh my goodness! Did you hold? Yes, we did the. Your nickname is D. I hope that sounds like a massive compliment. I wish my nickname was D, but no, I did not. We did do the Vampire Entity Message from Mars. We did the first issue, and the diplomatic answer is the artist had some medical complications, and then it slowed down production of issue 2, and then the studio that owns the rights to it decided they wanted to continue it without us. So God bless them, and I wish them all the success.
Hey, one last question. I wanna ask you about working with Amanda. You know, on that first Niobe series. You know, how was it like? You know, her being the co-writer and, you know, y'all making that history and stuff. Like, what was it like working with her on this
Amazing
book?
Yeah, she's amazing. She was, I mean, look, she was 15 at the time, so she incredibly bright, and aware for someone so young and wise, and wanting to, and already at such a young age has so much weight on her shoulders as a celebrity. You know, she had just come out with a YouTube video from school about cultural appropriation and getting a lot of heat, good and bad, on it. And so she was on a massive spotlight. So the parallels for the character Niobe and what she was dealing with were quite significant at that point in her life. Very giving, just very giving with her time and her spirit. And I just can't be more thankful that she blessed us with, you know, her talent and her depth of there's such a depth to her. You know, she plays violin. She is very, very fearless in, or conquering her fears in wanting to do better for all of humanity, and especially the underrepresented. So it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So I couldn't be more thankful.
That is awesome, man. I'm gonna get ready to wrap this up, but I just want to say this was a fantastic show, man. You really brought the energy, the passion, and you know, you sold this on the people in the chat. You know, Daryl.
Yeah, you not only sold Daryl, you brought him over to your side, gave him a sword, and he will fight on your behalf.
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Daryl, I dub thee. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. It's very kind.
And you know, I knew coming into it, I'm like, this is going to be a fun episode because how I saw your IG lives and just you delivering your passion about these stories and the characters. I was like, I can't wait to have him on here so we can just galvanize the chat with your stories. And thank you so much for telling us your comic book origins. It was great hearing about the Hulk being one of your favorite characters, because I know Jeffrey Comic Con would love if he was in the chat to hear that. Like, oh yes, the Hulk. Because he's a huge Hulk.
Man, I was so disappointed the way they fucking, from the first Avengers movie, I was like, yes, finally. And then the rest, I was like, oh, you're just using him as a scapegoat to be like, the Hulkbuster armor is really tough. Check. Thor is really tough. Check. Thanos is really tough. Check. You just use them as that device. Fuck me. Did that as a Hulk fanatic?
Yeah, all the Hulk fans was upset about that.
Jeffrey said the same thing. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if you've noticed, but we're less than 6 minutes from being on for 2 hours.
Oh shit! Yeah. So, thank you, guys. Yeah, I'm such a rambler. Apologies for me. Well, I tangent like a motherfucker. Like,
Hey, that's okay. As long as it's interesting. We know we might go on a journey. We'll come back to it though.
Yeah. But it was just amazing to hear your stories, and just talk about this vast universe that is Stranger Comics in the world of Asunda. And I'm happy that I got you on the show, and we just had a blast. And Will stuck around, and he enjoyed this. So hopefully we could have another show like this in the future. Because I'm definitely looking to have you on board with other people who usually be on my show.
Oh yeah, for sure. Would love to. Absolutely. And then Will, what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow you right now. We can follow each other and become buddies as well. Let's see. I'm going to do this right now. Big underscore Will.
Well, I was going to follow you later because I can't see on StreamYard the YouTube, but since you're going to follow me, I can follow you real easy.
Done. You're in. Okay, Wolverine. There you are. I love the profile pic. And then anyone else that jumped on, Daryl, with the letter D, definitely follow me. I'll follow you back, so you can put in your IG handle, and I can invite you guys. Oh, and the other thing too is a dear friend of mine, a publisher, is doing her live on Sunday. I'll send you messages if you want to see it. Brown Sugar Fairies. And we're building an app for people that want to be part of the Stranger Comics community, and it'll give you first opportunities to get, these types of cool things, like the hip hop variant, Biggie Smalls stuff. And
I ordered that too, man. I had to get that.
Sweet.
It is. It's great. And the other crazy thing too, and I don't know if it's on the table, and I'll let you guys be before I'll just carry on yapping, is we do a Tribe Called Quest, couple of variants, and the cosplayer on the Tribe Called Quest variant is the mother of this little girl right here. So it's a cosplaying family affair.
Yeah, I personally don't like hip hop, but I got to say all the different hip hop covers people have been putting out most of them are fire.
They are. Some of them are amazing. Yeah, all our hip hop ones, I think they're amazing.
Matter of fact, what I got this one.
See, there you go. There's the Midnight Marauders one.
I love that album.
Do you see my face on there?
Yeah, right there.
There I am, looking ridiculous. Yeah.
Also got, I got this from you a couple weeks ago.
Oh snap! You got the Daryl Inks, yes. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
And of course, she's right there in the chat. I got a spotlight California blend for this.
Oh yeah, that's so cool. That's so. Oh man, California blend. Thank you. That's so awesome.
Yeah, just amazing work, and I'm just gonna keep on supporting you because you continue to put out great work and you continue to be a great person.
Thank you.
That's all. That's what I love. Meet great people, connect with them, and just have fun and talk comics and stuff. And that's what this community is all about. Comics and fun.
Comics and fun. We could all use a bit more fun these days. More comics, more fun. So yeah, I appreciate you guys having me. I really do.
All right, man. With that being
StreamYard before?
I did once. I was not very good at hosting it, and I've been on a few people's StreamYards. I just need to be.
I was just making sure you know that when he ends the stream, you don't have to mash the Leaf Studio.
Right. Yes, that's.
Yeah, there was one guy that didn't know that, and everyone was like, "Bye," and we're going to talk later, and he was just gone.
Yeah, no, I'll stick around for sure.
But yeah, thanks everybody for showing up. Remember, the links are in the description. StrangerComics.com. You get 20% off your order for using the code BHM, Black History Month. 20% off your order. Also follow Stranger Comics on Instagram, and just check out anything that they put out because they got some awesome content. I mean, you see covers like this and you immediately want to buy it, and then you're going to read it and you're going to be like, I need more. And that's the beauty of it, man. So thanks everybody for showing up in the chat. I'd like to thank Big Will for being here and staying on. It was great. And thank you again, Sebastian, for being here and just having a blast talking it up.
Thank you, bro.
So have a great weekend, y'all. Be safe.